Hello, my friends. Let's start this one from the positive news coming from the occupied Crimea. And what could be more positive than demolishment of the Russian military? Yes, once again, Ukrainian primary unit, which is a very capable unit of the Ukrainian drone army, was very precise in hitting Russian military infrastructure. So this is, for example, S-400 radar of the Russian air defense. Well, I guess this one was at least damaged. Then the next one we have RLS, so also radar P-18 system was hit. Here's the highway on the route to this facility. Also radars, RLS 55. Yeah, it was working, rotating. And what is here? Oh, it should be a Russian ship here. Yeah, the desantный корабль means landing ship. Landing ship was hit, and there were some of the shots from the ship. But anyways, you see that the strike was pretty much precise, so at least this one was damaged. I think that this ship was operating because of the thermal trace in the engine compartment where the power plant is located. Even though it was parked, maybe it is even Sevastopol. And this is one more video. It shows the kaboom of the Russian oil storage in occupied Luhansk region. Some of the oil tanks or maybe fuel tanks, they're already on fire, as you might see, so there were numerous of the strikes. And here is one more oil facility somewhere, but this video doesn't have the focus to show precise details. Well, anyways, as you might see, Ukrainian drone operators are very successful, even far behind the front line, disturbing all of the branches of the Russian army. Supplies, communications, surveillance, everything of that are the targets for Ukrainian drones. As well as yesterday, Moscow was a target. There were multiple of the kabooms, and Russians, as you might see, even deployed this mobile gun group very close to Kremlin. This is the Kremlin wall behind. Well, here I don't see even a good aiming equipment, nothing really. So I wonder about the potential success of this group, and this vehicle is clearly not a Bukhanka van. Just a couple of days ago, the United States introduced new sanctions on Russia. Putin was telling how mighty Russian army really is. He even started nuclear exercises, but what we see in reality is this one. Yeah, there is also Panzer 1S, S-300, S-400, but come on, this is not the second army in the world with those kind of the technologies. Yes, in Ukraine we also have those mobile groups, but they armed better, way better, and they use special aiming equipment. Usually it's like that, and also Ukraine is using special drone interceptors. Also drones, small ones, they look like small shell with many of the propellers, at least 4. They fly at a very high speed to intercept Russian Shahids. Where Russia is using those drones is to protect Putin. For example, this is the iconic video that was filmed probably this spring, and here is this drone interceptor, a guy literally with a drone, and here is Putin. Those tools are not widely spread in Russia still, but in Ukraine it's a usual thing to operate those drones to repel Russian attacks. Just the day before yesterday, 9 of the Russian Shahid drones were shot down with the help of those drone interceptors in Kiev. And this is the oil storage in the Moscow's region of Serpukhov, so the Russian air defense was just partially successful. Ukrainian drones managed to hit several of the targets even inside Moscow city. According to the information coming from the Astro channel, one of the kabooms was spotted in the park area in one of the districts of Moscow. What was there? Maybe some sort of the military infrastructure? Well, now it's hard to clarify, but definitely something was burning. It doesn't look like the wildfire at all, so concentrated spot, dark smoke, something definitely was hit. Plus, the last night Russia was forced to close many of the commercial airfields, not just in Moscow, but in the regions bordering Ukraine. I was monitoring the flight paths of the airplanes yesterday on Flight Radar 24 during my stream on my another channel. By the way, it's in the video description just below. I call it a trash channel, so I just go there with the streams about any sort of the topic. So we saw how the Russian airplanes circumnavigated around huge, vast areas of Russia. So not just Ukraine hits the part of the Russian infrastructure on the ground, but also it influences the Russian economy. For the last couple of days, Ukraine hits the Russian dam in Belgorod region. The dam was damaged, and now the level of the water storage goes down. More water is going to the local rivers. And it is a tactical move that the Ukrainian army is using to defend the front lines in Kharkiv region. Let me show you the map to explain everything. I already reported yesterday and the day before yesterday that Russians start to propel in Vovchansk. For example, we also have the deep state military map update, so now we see the Russian army movement. All of that is happening in the northern region of the Kharkiv Oblast, which is bordering Belgorod. And here you can see this river of Donets that goes from Belgorod region to Ukraine, and also the part of the water goes to Vovchansk. It is a river of Vovcha, and this is the river of Donets. And if we go to the north, to Belgorod region, you might see this water storage over here. And this particular dam was hit, and now it is uncontrollably drops the water towards the river of Donets. And that situation potentially could stop the Russian advancement, because Vovcha River and Donets River, they will be way wider than they are right now. There will be more water. For Russians, this natural obstacle would be hard to cross. Also, it might disturb their logistics if the local villages are flooded. For example, on the Russian side and on the Ukrainian side, also occupied areas. But after all, it's early to say about the success of those measures because the water storage here, it is not that big. Nevertheless, Russians already announced the evacuation of those villages. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna update you on this dam situation. Oh, we have some breaking news published just right now. Russia lost Kama-52 attack helicopter in Ukraine. Those news were already confirmed by some of the Russian channels, also affiliated with Russian Air Force. And if they write internal flight brothers, it means that both of the pilots were kaputted. Together with their helicopter, I guess a couple of weeks ago, Russia also lost one more K-52 helicopter. The crew, I think, survived. I don't remember actually, but this one was flatlined, which means that Russian army tactics is not working as they want to. And even using the long-range missiles on those helis, it doesn't help. And now let's go to the front lines. Here in this region of Dobropilya direction, Ukraine was very successful for the last few days. Sukhetsk, Zatyshev and Kucherov Yar were liberated by Ukrainian army. Some of the Russians were imprisoned as well. At the same time, Russians tried to go to Vladimirivka with a convoy strike, but it was not successful. It was a total failure, and maybe for that reason they now try to redirect their forces to advance towards Nikhanorivka. Actually, they have some of the territorial gains there, very small, but still. So here Russians tried to take Nikhanorivka and maybe go to Dorozhne, that was also liberated by Ukraine maybe a couple of weeks ago. If we zoom into Nikhanorivka, the situation looks like that. So Russians took some of the ground, very small portions, but Ukraine is successful on the south, and in Dorozhne the heavy fight is ongoing for this village. Well, Russians still may act in this place, but this northern group of the Russian army is mostly isolated. And a couple of days ago it was the Russian advancement operation towards Rodinsk. They put their flag, but they were later on kaputted by Ukrainian drones. So it's still not a successful operation and was conducted by isolated Russian forces, couple of soldiers who went there during the night time using the thermal cloaks. Let's go to the south here, the Pokrovsk direction itself. According to my information, Russia poured more of the infantry forces there. It's heavy fight. Well, Ukrainian infantry is also in Pokrovsk, but just occasionally. 200 of the Russian forces at least are in this settlement. And they could be, I would say, elsewhere. What you see on this map, those gray areas, it's just for the picture. The actual situation out there has bigger dynamic. And unfortunately, it's now already evident that Pokrovsk will fall. It's just a matter of time. Russians, with the forces they have, they would have occupied this a long time ago, but Ukrainian drones and Ukrainian infantry make it not that quick for Russians. I expected Russians to occupy Pokrovsk the last winter, and here we go with a new winter of 2025 and 2026, and still Russians are not capable to take the settlement. The main plus for Ukraine that it's not going to be the second Bakhmut with tremendous losses. No, Ukraine will just withdraw the forces from Pokrovsk, that's it. Ukraine is actually already doing it just little by little, but the destiny of Pokrovsk, well, it's vivid, it's evident that Russians will take it. This year, well, maybe, or maybe the next year, also the same destiny goes for Mirnograd. Plus for Kupiansk too, because Russian forces are already in the central part of this city. And compared to Pokrovsk, I would say that the defense of Kupiansk was not organized properly. It tells a lot about robust defense lines that Ukraine was capable to build in Donbass, but not in Kharkiv region. So Russians went here way faster compared to Pokrovsk. Also, you might see that Russians went to Kurlivka village from Pishana. Yeah, very long attack, as you might see, but those are just the limited forces of the Russian Federation, not the main ones. But again, it shows the holes in Ukrainian defense. Mostly defense is holding with the help of the drones. And speaking in general about the situation for Ukraine in this particular direction, knowing that there is an Oskil river here and all of the bridges were already cut by Russians, well, honestly, it looks like Kherson for Russians in 2022, but now it's for Ukrainians in Kupiansk region. Without supplies and with the main supply lines cut, Ukraine will be forced to retreat from this region. It's 100% also. I would now concentrate to put some of the pontoon bridges to evacuate the forces even right now, because after all it could be very late, because if Russians go in a close proximity to the river, they might cause Ukraine more losses, and after all Ukraine will have to give all of those territories to Russia for the temporary Russian control as occupied territories. Here I don't see the reason for Ukraine to stay there and to defend this territory for a very extensive time, because supplies are basically cut. Without supplies you cannot defend this area, it is already evident. So the best thing, as I see it, is to concentrate to defend this shore of the Oskil River, including Kupiansk city. I mean, it will fall also for Russians, but Ukraine still might disturb Russian logistics to supply the city, because Russians crossed the Oskil River and they created this bridgehead. Without this one, they cannot really control this city properly. So maybe it's the good thing to be focused on this area. Yeah, Ukraine tried to counterattack here, but it was a very stupid counterattack in attempt to cut Russian supplies here with a couple of the vehicles. The proper variant is to build defense and use lots of the drones, artillery, aviation, as we may see here, and avoid direct confrontations with Russians, performing those kind of the straightforward attacks into the bottlenecks, really. But this area, yeah, Ukraine will not keep it. It's already evident. And those are not just my words. Military analytics and our volunteers, they say about this difficult situation in Kupiansk, and they compared to Kherson for Russia in 2022. I would agree with that comparison. Definitely looks similar. Plus, if you go to Dnipropetrovsk region, every day Russia moves there. So it was yesterday, it is today. Russia offenses in Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk. And they are very, very close to Pokrovsk already. You see, Novoalexandrivka. How far is that? Well, you don't see the numbers probably, but it's less than 10 kilometers. And let's check out like 3 months ago, yeah, October, September, August. Well, let's take August the 1st. It was like that. And today it's like that. It shows that the Ukrainian defense is unable to stop the Russian army advancement. Despite some of the defense lines built, well, here we have some of the war obstacles, hills. They slow down the Russian offensive, but they do not stop it. The situation here is very complicated, and unfortunately it seems like Ukrainian military command in charge of this location is not competent. Do you think that Kadyrov is just a TikToker? No, Valentin Manko, one of the commanders of Ukrainian army, does this stupid shit literally on TikTok. What the fuck is happening? He even looks like the guy from the Kadyrov army. Well, luckily he's not the commander of this entire region, but still he is a commander. And today on his freaking TikTok he published the military maps. I mean real maps with the secret information. Yeah, lovely dog, but here we have some of the maps and you may analyze them. Our volunteers are in shock. What the fuck is happening? Why this idiot posts everything of that on TikTok? I rarely comment, but what the fuck is that? So I think this idiot should be dismissed, at least from his position. He even posted the TikTok with a tactical map on this interactive board with all of the locations of the Ukrainian army, of the Russian army. Well, what can I say? Our enemy is very happy. A biggest Ukrainian volunteer also mentioned this idiot, and who propels him out there in command in Ukrainian army? Because there was the information that someone wants to put Manko as the commander of the Ukrainian assault forces. It's crazy. Well, here he points out the location of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, Donetsk and Zaporizhia, the very important direction, crucial for Ukraine. Plus, he leaked the secret information from iPad where the positions of Ukraine, like detailed positions of Ukrainian armed forces are published, so this guy should be not just dismissed but also prosecuted, and if Ukrainian commander Syrskyi doesn't do anything with that guy, it means that he is incompetent himself. Yeah, many our soldiers and volunteers, they're just in shock about that guy. Who the hell put him in charge? It's a big question, and the way how he communicates with audience, blah blah blah, suka nahuy, something like that, it's beyond stupidity. Judging on his rhetorics, actions, and everything, he should not be a commander of Ukrainian army. But the dog is nice, yeah. The only thing good about him is the dog. And you might say, oh, Dennis, you shouldn't say such bad things towards Ukrainian commanders. We should say just good stuff about Ukraine. No, I say truth because the less those incompetent commanders are out there in Ukrainian army, the more Ukrainian soldier lives could be saved. And I use my channel, my social media for that purpose, to improve Ukrainian army, for our guys not to be trapped or flatlined because of the incompetence of Ukrainian army command. At least we can influence that. And it is not just me, as you saw, yeah? Many of the Ukrainian volunteers, many military guys, they are against that type of the Ukrainian commanders, and hopefully that particular one will be dismissed for his stupid TikToks. It's crazy. We blame Kadyrov, yeah? We make fun about Kadyrov army, but doing the same stuff, even worse, putting secret documents out there on TikTok, Commander Manko should decide whether he is a TikToker or commander after all. Well, I think it's too late, he should be dismissed. Well, at least I will do everything for those commanders not to be in the Ukrainian army. Also, if we compare that map that was shared by that particular individual to the current situation on the front lines from the deep state military map, well, I might say that it's a little different. Maybe that TikTok was recorded before, or maybe that map doesn't reflect the actual Russian territorial gains. That reminds me what happened in Gerasimov headquarters. Then his map showed huge Russian territorial gains, which is absolute nonsense. And yeah, indeed, it's the Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk direction, the most sensitive nowadays for Ukrainian army defense, because Russia propels there fast compared to other regions of Ukraine. Alright, Russians published the video of how they demolish Ukrainian RST. Well, actually it was a decoy and it is already visible. Ukraine makes those decoys on its own. They're usually being towed to the place, and here it was no explosion, nothing, just a carton vehicle. But sometimes Russians could be successful, especially using Iskander missiles. Those are very hard to intercept. Well, here they didn't hit RST or something, but some of the Ukrainian vehicles. So this was the position of 1 to 3, at least, of the vehicles of Ukrainian army. All of them were destroyed by Iskander. Alright, to some of the political news, but they're also touching Ukraine and Russia. Let's listen to Donald Trump's comment on Putin's nuclear exercise.
Russia said this week that they've tested a new missile that can go more than 8,000 miles. Is that saber-rattling for you? What is that?
They know we have a nuclear submarine, the greatest in the world, right off their shores. So, I mean, it doesn't have to go 8,000 miles. And they're not playing games with us. We're not playing games with them either. We test missiles all the time. But, you know, we do have a submarine, a nuclear submarine. We don't need to go 8,000 miles. And I don't think it's an appropriate thing for Putin to be saying either, by the way. He ought to get the war ended. A war that should have taken 1 week is now in its soon 4th year. That's what he ought to do instead of testing missiles.
So you heard that this nuclear blackmail, it simply failed. No one believes Putin any longer that he potentially could use or can use the nuclear weapons against Western countries. Clearly, Putin wanted to threaten West after sanctions were applied. He went to the military headquarters wearing the military uniform, telling about the Wunderwaffe cruise missile Burevestnik, capable to fly forever, for a long distance. You know, it has a nuclear engine, it has a nuclear warhead, it has everything nuclear, double nuclear, triple nuclear. And that was clearly the message of Putin towards Donald Trump that, come on, Donny, I'm a strong guy here, I'm Putin. But Donald, he didn't take the bite. Actually, I'm quite surprised that Donny implemented those sanctions on Russia and how he behaves now with Putin. For him, Putin is somewhere lower than he himself. And because Putin doesn't want to ceasefire the current front line, he hurts personal ego of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump doesn't like it. Yes, even though Donny is very warm towards Putin and not such warm towards Zelensky, but there is some sort of limit in humiliation of Donald Trump. And about this super mega Russian missile Burevestnik, honestly, I don't see the reason for this weaponry to even exist. Well, maybe it is out there just for corruption schemes with Russian military budget, that's it. Because Russia already has a lot of the weapons, ballistic missiles, those are also hard to intercept, especially then the warheads, they separate, they fly in different locations. Some of them are dummies, some of them are not. You can launch those from the airplanes, you can launch those just as missiles, ICBMs, and you can use submarines very close to United States or any sort of the country. And it is like that for the most nuclear countries. Russia alone may destroy the world several times with its own nuclear arsenal. They don't really need to produce those cruise missiles, because what they have already in terms of delivery capabilities and quantity of those warheads is way more than enough. So what's this threat, this cruise missile? So it could be ICBM, yeah. What's the difference? Like the result is the same. I never understood, like, what's the reason of this warfare even to be designed nowadays? Well, if Russia would have designed some of the outstanding air defense system capable to shut down any sort of the ICBM, any sort of the cruise missile, any sort of the everything, well, that would be definitely a threat, because Russia might use its own nukes without being hit by other countries. But this new balalaika missile, it changes nothing. So for me, it's always funny to listen about those Wunderwaffe missiles. Also, there is kind of the interesting remark from the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent. Yesterday, he mentioned the new sanctions applied on Russia, and he commented about the envoy of Russia, Dmitriev, calling him a Russian propagandist 2 of the times. Well, it means one thing, that the visit of Dmitriev to United States basically failed miserably. Let's watch this one. Yeah, there are some of the subtitles.
Let you go. I want to ask you, the U.S. sanctioned Russia's top oil and gas companies this past week. But Vladimir Putin's envoy, who is here in the United States, Kirill Dmitriev, I know you know him, said the sanctions will have, quote, absolutely no effect on Russia's economy. They will simply lead to higher prices at gas stations in the United States. Is Dmitriev wrong? And when will Russia actually feel the pain?
Well, I think Russia is going to feel the pain immediately. I can tell you that we've already seen India has done a complete halt of Russian oil purchases. Many of the Chinese refineries, they have stopped. And, Margaret, are you really going to publish what a Russian propagandist says? I mean, what else is he going to say? That, it's going to be terrible and it's going to bring Putin to the table? Of course. The Russian economy is a wartime economy. Growth is virtually zero. Inflation, I believe, is over 20%. And everything we do is going to bring Putin to the table. It's oil that funds the Russian war machine, and I think we can make a substantial dent in his profits.
Yeah, actually, it's a little longer. I mean, this remark interview, we saw just a part of it. Then journalist asked Bessent, okay, Dmitriev, you say he's a Russian propagandist, but he's like officially appointed figure, and he was coordinating efforts with Witkov, so he was like confirmed by the Donald Trump's administration. But Scott Bessent again called him the Russian propagandist the second time. It's crazy. So as for me, the huge, absolutely great mistake was done by Dmitriev. Then he went to the United States and he said that sanctions will not influence the Russian economy at all. They'll have absolutely no effect on the Russians' economy. This is the undermining of the Trump's efforts to finish this war. If you tell that what Trump does is useless, it basically angers Donald Trump even more. And you know what? There are some of the signals that the United States of America are working to increase those sanctions or apply new sanctions for Russians to really feel what it could be. And those sanctions, they definitely might harm Russia quite a lot. I wonder why they were not introduced in February 2022, and we see them just right now. But it's great that they were introduced. Yeah, of course, Russia may bypass those after some time, and China still continue to cooperate with Russia. It is their strategic partnership, but sanctions may definitely harm Russian, even military production. The Moscow Times referred to the original sources of the Russian Federation and statistics of the military production, saying that economy has lost its last slack. Military production in Russia has begun to decline. Definitely, Russia produces less of the weaponry for the first time since the beginning of the war. Till the summer of 2025, the military production was growing up, but it's the first few months that Russia produces less of the weaponry. Why? Well, basically because Russia has the budget deficit. It's quite significant. The military sphere takes 40% of the Russian entire budget. So without refueling it with the cheap oil money, this sphere may also decline. And the first signs of it are just evident. Well, it's still not a collapse of the Russian economy. Russia may still produce lots of the military, and it might continue for years and years, but it's not as high as it was. So we see the downfall a little bit, but it's the start of the collapse. Also now, because of the sanctions, Greek companies refuse to operate with the Russian oil export. They refuse to carry Urals crude oil on their ships or to accept oil tankers in the ports. Well, maybe this measure is just temporary, as it usually happens with the new sanctions being applied. At first they halt everything, but then they try once, they try second time, and if it goes, if no secondary sanctions applied, they can full scale again the cooperation with Russian Urals or receive Russian oil tankers and so on. Because sanctions on a paper and sanctions in reality, sometimes they do not match. But now those Greek companies, at least they are scared, and Indian market definitely is looking for alternates. India signed the new contracts with Qatar and Saudi Arabia. My friends, thank you so much for your kind support. Without it, my job wouldn't be possible, especially without patrons and members of the channel. If you want to support the job that I do here every day, please follow me on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description just below. Or join the membership. Obviously, it's here somewhere, the button to join if you want and if you can, of course. If not, just press your like to this video, subscribe for the channel, because it helps to boost this video in YouTube algorithms. So thank you so much for that as well. And as always, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.